Welcome, everyone. Welcome to First Tuesdays. Thank you for attending. We're really glad that we are able to be here and start on time because we had a lot of technical issues today with no internet, but fortunately we were able to get a hotspot set up, and here we are. So welcome, and today's First Tuesday is one with a lot of speakers talking about life after graduate schools. Carolyn's not able to join us today. I'm Jennifer Fenton from the Washington State Library. And with me for tech support today is Jeremy Stroud, who you've been hearing in the background as he gets everything set up. And take a note if you need tech support. He's actually not at his desk, and we don't have email. So just type in chat or call Joe's phone number. He should be at his desk, I believe, and he could come in and grab us. So this is brought to you by the Washington State Library, which is part of the Office of the Secretary of State, and the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is our federal funder. So one thing that we need to do is we need to, oh, Jeremy typed in his cell number, so there you go, you have a contact number to get a hold of him directly. So go ahead and type in where you work, your library and city state. We need this information for all our hundreds of statistics that we turn in. So if everyone can please go ahead and type in where you're from, that will help us. We'll take a moment to do that. Oh, good. Great, thank you. I see people are logging in from all over the state and all over the country, so that's wonderful. Well, our moderator today is Adrienne Doman Calkins, who is at the Sherwood Library in Oregon, and she is a recent graduate and pulled together a panel of other recent graduates, and they're going to share with all of us about life after getting an MLIS. So please take it away. Welcome, Adrienne, and our panelists.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Jeremy. It's wonderful to be here, so thank you for logging in and taking part. I'm delighted we are all here together, and we have a lineup of 7 recently degreed Masters in Library and Information Science professionals for this panel discussion this morning. Our main question is this. You get the degree, and 1 to 4 years later, what is life like? And like these fireworks, the degree is a catalyst for so much more, but not always in the way we hope or expect. Like a fireworks display, some trajectories are bigger and bolder than expected, and others just fizzle out. Some are followed by a series of explosions, and others are singular. So I asked each of our 7 panelists 12 questions about their careers, coursework, and more. Together we are newish librarians here to share a bit of our experience in the hopes that it gives a snapshot of this era of the MLIS job hunting and career expectations. Here's who we are. So we'll just take a moment to introduce ourselves. We all attended, 4 different schools in total, ranging from online schools to brick and mortar schools. And we're going to just take turns now saying hello and our names. So this is me. I'm Adrienne. I'm Doman Calkins, and I graduated from San Jose State University. And I'll pass the mic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Carlson. I went to the Emporia State University and graduated in 2013. I was in the class with Crystal Garcia, and I currently work at the McMinnville Public Library in McMinnville, Oregon, as the circulation specialist here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Lockman, and I graduated from the University of Washington's iSchool in 2010. And I currently work at the Olympia Timberland Library as a youth services librarian.
Hi everyone, my name is Crystal Garcia, and I graduated from Emporia State, and I currently work in Sherwood, Oregon.
Hi guys, I'm Kayla Emerson, and I work at the Chehalis-Timberland Library, and I graduated from Drexel University last summer.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hashemi Scott, and I went to San Jose State University and graduated in 2012, and I currently work for the Seattle Public Library.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brianna Hoffman, and I went to Emporia State University and graduated in 2013 with Crystal and Adam. Hi, guys. And currently I work for two different libraries. I work as a library assistant 2 at the Richland Public Library and as a circulation or as a customer service specialist at Mid-Columbia Libraries.
Thank you, everyone. And on this next slide, you can see these are our pictures again and our jobs so that you can read it and listen to us talking. So as you can see, we're working all over the Pacific Northwest, and we have a lot of different experiences to share with you today. So I'd love to hear more about our audience members. What about you? And this is the polling that we were talking about. So if you are a current MLIS student, if you would please go to the poll that's on the left-hand side, there's the 4 little icons. Thank you, Jeremy. That's the one. And you just pull down, and for example, if I were saying current, I would click A. And can we go back to my page? There it
Sorry.
is. Okay, thank you. So the MLIS students, if you would select A. If you are a graduate, B. If you're thinking about the program, C. And anything else that I didn't capture here, D. Thank you.
For those who missed it, it looks like a couple of people did. The polling options are available right here above the participants window itself. So there you go. Jennifer's jumping over to her desk. It sounds like our internet's back up.
Thank you, everyone. So we can see here how we answered. It looks like most of us are graduates, and we've got some people who are other, and we've got a few students too, 4 students. So great, welcome. Sorry, I accidentally muted. I'll just start over. So the road after the MLIS isn't straight, and the view ahead isn't always clear. We know the research. Job growth for librarians is predicted to be 7% from 2012 to 2022, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is below the national average for all job growth at 11%. We've been hearing that more jobs would open up as the first wave of baby boomers retire, but the fact is the economy changed many people's retirement plans. The 2014 Library Journal Placements and Salaries Survey found that of the 2023 graduates responding to the survey, a little over 81% said they were employed, and this was slightly down from the previous year. The thing that's going up, though, is that overall more graduates are in permanent professional positions, and also more graduates are doing more variety in their positions. So more librarians are doing collection development, cataloging, e-resource management. And also according to this Library Journal survey, graduates cite the resume, interviewing skills, and networking as critical components to job hunting. So our group fits right in with that. When I asked our group, was library school worth the expense and effort? Are you still glad you went? 100% of people said yes, and that was great to hear. There were some nuances to how they said yes, but this was the overall answer. I asked more questions. How long after graduation did you get a promotion or positive career change? And to me, this is in many ways more important to see the value of the degree than just seeing what type of job people got. And you can see our results here. And I will pass the microphone. Sarah, would you please share your experience?
Sure, thanks. So about 7 months after I graduated with my MLIS, I interviewed and was offered a temporary position at my current library, the Seattle Public Library, as an adult services librarian. So I was in that position for about 7 months, but since it was temporary, it did end, and then I went back to my permanent position.
Thank you, Sarah. And Caleb, please tell us about your experience.
Well, I was working at two different public libraries, Tacoma Public Library and Timberland Regional Library, and graduated last summer. And about 4 months after that, I got a new position. It was full-time at just the Chehalis Timberland Library. And it was only as a library assistant, but I still appreciated having my degree to get that job.
And Sarah, please share your experience.
Through grad school, I was working at a theater in Seattle, so I wasn't working at a public library yet, and it took me, I graduated in June, and I got my job as a youth services librarian at the Olympia Library in November, so it took me about 5 months to get a library job after getting my degree.
Yes, thank you. Another question I asked was, does your current position require a Master's in Library and Information Science degree? And you can see 3 of us are in positions that required the degree, and 4 of us, while we still had positive career changes, those positions did not require the master's degree. And so I'd like to pass the microphone here to Crystal, who's going to say a little bit about how the degree helped her with her job.
Thank you. So in my current position, it is a professional level librarian position, so it does require the MLS. However, in my previous position as a library assistant too, the MLS was not a requirement, but it was a preferred qualification. And because I was working towards my MLS at that time, I was allowed to gain experience doing professional level projects. And that experience certainly helped me be able to move into my current position.
Thank you, Crystal. And Sarah Lockman, would you please describe your experience?
So my current position does require an MLIS, and there is no way I would be working in a library without an MLIS because I had no public library working experience before I even started applying at public libraries. I worked in an academic library for a quarter or two in college. But without any practical public library experience, I doubt I would even have a non-professional position at a public library, so I'm really grateful to have my degree.
Yes, thank you. And I'll share for myself, I am a library manager now, and so it was a minimum requirement to have the degree. In my previous work, I was a circulation supervisor at Olympia Timberland Library, and that experience, 10 years of management experience, also helped me to get my current job. So for those of us who got positive career changes but didn't get a position that required the position, or excuse me, the degree, I'd like to hear from you. So I'll pass the phone, or excuse me, I'll pass the microphone on to Sarah.
So I currently work as a library associate 4 at the Seattle Public Library, and it is a position that technically requires only a high school diploma. However, being in Seattle, we have a lot of MLIS degreed librarians who work in our organization who may or may not be working in professional level librarian positions, and so there are quite a few of us who are working as Library Associate 4s. And I did get hired for this position during my final year of library school. And I think the fact that I was pursuing an MLIS definitely helped me get the job because reference and information services are a major part of the work that I do, as well as supporting digital literacy through computer instruction and bibliographic instruction. And those were all things that I had taken coursework in, and so I was able to speak to that in my interview and ultimately was offered the position.
Thank you, Sarah. And Kayla, what was your experience?
Well, I went from working at several large branches of both the Tacoma Library and the Timberland Regional Library. But when I went to interview with the Chehalis Library, it's a medium-sized branch. And what I found out since I started there is that there are actually a lot of us who have been both hired before I got there and since I got there, who have our degrees or are in the process of getting our degrees. So I think the fact that I had mine definitely improved my chances of getting it because the competition is stiff out there, even for the non-professional positions. And you know, the fact that I have my degree means that I'm not having to send the patrons away, you know, to wait for another person to be able to answer their question. I'm able to help them right there, and you know, it ends up being a lot better for the patron.
Thank you. And Adam, I'll pass the mic to you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, well, so I'm working currently at the McMinnville Public Library as the circulation specialist here, and while kind of similar to others, while my position doesn't require an MLS, it is very much preferred, and I would say that just being involved in an MLS program really helped me in my interviewing, and definitely just overall has helped me to get this job. I don't think there was much chance I would have gotten this job without an MLS.
Thank you, Adam. And Brianna, how did the degree help you?
Well, neither one of my current positions as a customer service specialist or a library assistant too required the MLIS, but I think that it was kind of a bonus for both of them. I think having that formal education kind of gave me a leg up when it came to the interviewing process and the selection process because, as others have mentioned, competition is stiff, and even in my area, competition is hard. I think that it's also helped me in both of my positions because since I have that education and I have that degree, I can do more of that kind of traditional librarian duties, such as like I do a lot of collection development and selection now, and even the reference questions that we get. That education that I have behind me has really helped me be able to give the best reference service that I can.
Nice. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, everyone. So this next question was, how did the economic downturn affect your career trajectory? And we had a variety of responses. And the job hunting during economic instability is never easy. And couple that with trying to make a major jump in a career with a freshly minted degree, and it's hard to know what's in store. So here's how 4 from our group were affected by the economy. Kayla, I will pass the mic to you.
So I've been working for public libraries for about 10 years now. I was first hired as a page with Tacoma Public Library, and I did really well there. That's where I first learned about getting an MLIS. I had a blast. I actually got promoted up a couple of times to temporary library assistant positions, which just furthered that desire to get the degree because I wanted to be able to help patrons more. But Tacoma Public was having a lot of financial difficulties. They've already had to close 2 branches. They've gone through layoffs at least 2 or 3 times now. I was laid off, recalled, threatened with layoff again, and finally was able to secure a full-time position with Timberland Regional Library. But it was really rough, and it was discouraging because a lot of the older librarians are not feeling secure financially themselves to be able to retire. And so that means that those of us who are degreed professionals are having to fill those lower positions, and it's just like I said earlier, the competition is getting fiercer and fiercer, but I wouldn't trade any of it.
Thank you, Kayla. And Crystal, what was your experience?
So the economic downturn certainly affected my career trajectory. When I graduated from college in 2006, my plan was to work for 2 years and then go back to school and get a master's in English. Well, by 2008, the job market had changed so drastically, and it was clear that a master's in English no longer seemed like a solid career plan. And also, by that time, I had already begun working in libraries and found that I truly enjoyed it. So I continued to work in libraries, and then I decided to start an MLS program in 2011.
Thank you, Crystal. And Sarah, what was your experience with the economic downturn?
I actually feel really lucky as far as this is concerned. I was worried when I graduated in 2010, that it was going to be very difficult for me to find a job. But I think the fact that I was willing to move and be flexible in exactly what job I took helped a lot. I was going to school and living in Seattle, and I interviewed at both Olympia and Sacramento and was willing to move to both. And I ended up going to Olympia because of the timing of the offer, and I feel pretty secure there, so I think I was actually pretty lucky, but I think flexibility was really important in that.
Thank you, Sarah. And Brianna, what was your experience?
Well, I think that the economic downturn affected me much the same way that it's affected others. There's lots of grads and not a lot of jobs. And librarianship is kind of a profession that you can do until you're in your 80s, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should in every case. And as it's been said before, a lot of professionals are staying in their jobs longer. For me, though, I kind of had the added hurdle of not being able to move after I graduated. I'm really settled in my area with kids in school and a husband with a job that he loves, that he doesn't want to leave, and parents here that I help take care of. And when you're getting ready to graduate library school, everyone's telling you, to get a job, you're going to have to move. And that really is not an option for everyone, and it certainly wasn't an option for me. And so I've kind of had the added hurdle of limiting my job search and waiting longer for positions to open up.
Thank you, Brianna. Something I really appreciate about this panel is that everybody has a slightly different experience to offer. And as we're moving through the questions, I'm selecting various stories for the panelists to share with you to give you the broadest range of responses possible. This next question was about our dream job. So here's our dream, the clouds and the unicorns, and how close is our current job to our dream job? Was the question. The elusive dream job. Upon starting the MLIS program, we may have had one dream job in mind, but by the end of the program, the profession looks really different, and so does our place in that profession. So I'd like to hear from a few of us. Crystal, how close is your job to your dream job?
Thank you. Well, I should preface this by saying that my current job is wonderful, not because it's my dream job, but because it is giving me the experience that I will need to take the next steps toward my dream job, but I'm a long way from it. Ultimately, I would like to work as a library director or manager in a small or mid-sized rural public library in Oregon. And because of the nature of rural libraries, I know it will be important for me to have a well-rounded understanding of public library operations. And my current position is in a mid-sized library, which is part of a larger cooperative. And because of that organizational structure, that allows for opportunities in the various library departments. So I know that I'm gaining the experience that I will need to take the next steps towards my dream job.
Thank you, Crystal. And Sarah, how close is your job to your dream job?
Thanks. So I think that my dream job is kind of an evolving notion, but I've learned a lot through my education and experience about what I enjoy doing at work and sort of what types of work environment I thrive in. So my current job does have several qualities that I think would be part of my dream job, or at least my dream job for the immediate future as I attempt to work my way to a professional position. So I currently work primarily with adults, and that's kind of the age group that I would like to continue working with. And I provide a mix of reference and instruction services, which is what I'm passionate about. My work directly supports the digital literacy of my community, which is a huge passion of mine. And I have the opportunity to participate on cross-divisional project teams in my organization and to participate in training and professional development activities such as conferences. I have opportunities to teach classes and participate in outreach events. And so I do have opportunities to sort of dip my toes in a lot of different things. And so all of those are definitely things that I would hope to continue as I do move into my dream job. On the other hand, it would be really nice to have the title and the status and pay that come along with a professional position.
Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah, how close is your current job to your dream job?
So again, I feel really lucky. I've been in the same job, my first ever library job, for 4 years now, and a lot of my classmates have moved around a lot, and I think that kind of shows how close my job is actually to my dream job, especially at this point in my career. But it is not what I expected, what I thought my dream job would be. I always knew I wanted to do youth services, but I thought that I very specifically wanted to be a teen services librarian. And that might have been because I was going to school in Seattle, and in Seattle there are teen services librarians, and I quickly found out that that is not a position that exists at every library. So I ended up taking a job as a youth services librarian, which means I work with 0 to 18-year-olds, which sounded really terrifying to me when I first started because I had no experience working with kids younger than like 12. But now that I've been here for 4 years, I can't imagine wanting to do anything else. I love doing preschool story time, and I love running teen book clubs, and I love doing readers advisory and reference. So I feel really lucky to have kind of fallen into what I didn't know was my dream job. I also, at this point in my career, don't really want to be a supervisor, and I want to be working with the public, and that might change, but as of now, I'm really happy.
Nice. Thank you, everybody. These answers just make me smile. I think this is my favorite question. So our next question is, what is one interesting turn your career has taken since graduation? And this brought out many directions that professional growth can take us, some of them positive and some of them difficult. And I will pass the mic to Sarah Lockman again.
Yeah, just kind of as a continuation of my last answer, I thought I was going to be a teen librarian, and now I kind of consider myself a storytime expert, which I had absolutely no idea that would happen to me. I thought I was going to be working with high schoolers, but I've had a lot of really amazing opportunities to learn from people about early childhood literacy and how storytime affects that. I had the opportunity to work on a study through the University of Washington and learn a lot. So that is definitely something I did not expect to happen when I became a librarian.
Thank you. And Adam, could you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, months after getting my MLS, so that was in September of 2013, I got my first librarian level position, and I was very excited about the job. Of course, it was an adult services librarian job, and I thought that that's where I might want to head in the future. But unfortunately, after a few months, it was becoming clear that it was not a good fit for me or the organization. And I was ultimately let go. But I didn't let that be a disappointment to me and let it get me down. It didn't make me feel like I was a bad librarian. And I can tell you that less than a month later, I was hired full-time in a higher position than the previous position. So while there's definitely been some ups and downs since graduation, that's to be expected.
Thank you for sharing, Adam. And I'm going to pass the mic to Sarah.
Thank you. So for me, an interesting turn that my career has taken since graduation is that I wrote a book chapter with a colleague that's going to be published next spring in an ALA editions book, and the book is called The Library Innovation Toolkit. And it kind of all started because the two of us were serving on the library innovation team at the Seattle Public Library, and that was something that launched a few months before I graduated in 2012. And I'm actually still serving on that team, so it's been a while now. But through that committee service, I started to learn a lot about innovation in libraries and to just continue to research it. And so the two of us did a conference presentation at the WLA conference in 2013, and then out of that grew this book chapter proposal, which ultimately was accepted and we went on to write. So that's kind of exciting. It's been a long process from proposal to now pending publication, but I'm really excited to see the finished product.
Nice. Thank you, Sarah. I'm really looking forward to that book coming out so I can read your chapter. So this next question was what MLIS classes were most useful to us? And so we're all going to paste in our answers. I'm going to move forward one slide so we have a little bit more room. And I'll let go of the mic, and this is where we each just use the text tool and paste in. And we might have to move our text boxes a bit if they overlap. For those of you in the audience, this is actually a lot harder than it looks. But I'm going to read through some of our answers. We've got information visualization, collection development, grant writing, marketing your library and information skills in a networked world, and an internship at Washington State Library. Current issues in management of information organizations, public librarianship, theoretical foundations of service, community needs analysis, anything taught by a working librarian, youth services programming, teen literature, directed field work, internship, social media, online, dealing with it all, community needs analysis, the hyperlinked library, emerging trends, and emerging technology. The thing I like about these answers is it's a broad range. It's not just the typical required classes. I think the takeaway message is really study the classes that are being offered maybe as experimental classes or slightly off of the mainstream classes too, because there's so much information there that's worthwhile. So moving on, another transition from going from being a student to working is that you're no longer immersed in all of the newest research and trends in library information science. You have to really seek it out. And so I asked, how do you stay connected with library and information trends? And I put all of those answers into this word map. Gives you kind of a visualization of it all. A lot of people cited Twitter and ALA and conferences and different professional resources. And so let's hear some more about this question. I'm going to pass the mic to Sarah.
So I think the library blogging community is really essential to stay caught up on. There are so many blogging librarians, and they're saying so many interesting things. I follow a ton of storytime blogs just for like really practical ideas to help freshen up storytime. I follow a lot of book review blogs because I'm a really slow reader, so it's really helpful for me to read other people's reviews. If you're interested in youth services, I highly recommend Storytime Underground and Jayberry. I'm really connected to Goodreads. I read Goodreads reviews constantly, so I can pretend like I've read a lot more books than I have. I read School Library Journal and Voya. I also attend the Washington Young Adult Review Group, which is a really valuable in-person professional development book review organization in Seattle to actually hear people talk about books. And my favorite conference that I've been to since I graduated is the Young Adult Literature Symposium put on by YALSA, which is going to be in Austin this year. It's a really awesome way to stay connected to authors and books.
Thank you, Sarah. And Brianna, how do you stay connected?
Well, I am an ALA member, so I receive a lot of information through ALA, and I get to PLA through that as well, and also Library Journal. But honestly, one of the best ways that I've found to stay connected with librarian information trends has been through Twitter. I joined Twitter when I started library school and have kind of become a real avid Twitter user, and through that I've been able to connect with really amazing library professionals across the country, and they've really become part of my personal learning network, and some of them have even become some of my informal mentors. And what I think is really interesting about Twitter is that not only do you have these library trends and issues being shared, but they're also being talked about. And I know 140 characters isn't much, but there's some really good conversations that go on Twitter, and there's different chats that happen. There's one, lib chat happens every week, and IneedALibraryJob.com has a chat that goes on every week, and you can search the hashtags out and connect with people that are talking about these issues. And also with the blogs, yes, library bloggers are awesome. There are so many good ones, and really I kind of connect with the blogs through Twitter because people share the links. So that's been a really, really big way for me to stay connected.
Thank you, Brianna. And Sarah, how do you stay connected?
So like others who've spoken before me, and like many of the things that you can see in the word cloud on the screen, I am active on various social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and I try to maintain a broad professional network online. I do regularly attend regional and national library conferences. I've gone to ALA, PLA, Internet Librarian, WLA, so I try to go to a conference every year if I can. I maintain membership in ALA, PLA, and WLA, and I read the professional literature that I get through those memberships. But one of the ways that I haven't heard mentioned yet is just sort of informal networking with colleagues. So there's sort of an intermittent group of us who like to go out for sushi once a week when we all work the night shift and have our later lunch at 4 o'clock. And sometimes it's just those informal meals and social outings that can elicit really interesting conversations. And because I'm not working in a professional level position, when I have the opportunity to engage with people who are working as librarians in my organization, I feel like I'm able to get a better sense of sort of where things are heading and what types of work they're doing, projects that they're working on, programs that they're working on. And so that can be a really great way to just sort of stay immersed in what's going on in my organization and to also hear from them about other trends that might be going on in the larger library world as well.
Thank you, Sarah and everyone. And I will just add a little bit about my own experience here. I totally agree about all the memberships and Twitter and LinkedIn. I also add As a new library manager, I'm also a new mom, and so my time is so precious, and I feel like I barely have time to read anything. I skim a lot of the journals and the online headings. I try and just go as broad as I can, and then dive into the articles that most relate to my profession. And I do love the conferences and the training events. Most of all, my focus right now is trying to network in person. So kind of what Sarah was saying, and for me, my new mantra is to be a joiner. So I go to all of the meetings that I'm invited to, like the Public Library Directors meeting here in Oregon is a statewide meeting that happens annually, and I just went to that, and the regional networking meetings and the little coffee chats for managers and all those things that are happening that I might feel like, you know, I'd rather sleep in this morning, but instead I'll get up at 6 and go to that 7 o'clock, 7:30 meeting. And those are really paying off because I start to see the same people and put names to faces and find out what people are doing and feel more comfortable asking questions. With that, let's move on. What advice would you give to current MLIS students? And we have some students here today, and so if you have more questions, there's a Q&A time at the end. Feel free to ask us anything else. I'm going to pass the microphone to Sarah to talk about what advice she would give.
So I would highly recommend getting involved in extracurricular activities that don't involve class. I think a lot of my most valuable experiences in grad school involved student interest groups and just doing stuff with my fellow students. I was involved at the University of Washington in a group called iYouth, and I actually got experience working with them to actually put on a conference for other students and library professionals, and that's not something I would have gotten to do if I had just been only doing classwork. I also really highly recommend doing an internship or a field work or whatever it happens to be called at your school, especially if, like me, you didn't have library experience before that. It's really helpful to be able to say you've actually done something at a library on your resume. And another thing that I didn't realize as I was in school, and it became very clear after graduating, is that your classmates, and not only your classmates, but your professors are going to become your colleagues. And the way you interacted with them in grad school is going to stay with them. So it's really important that if you have to do a group project for a class, that you are a really awesome team member. Because if people like working with you in school and they eventually become in a position where they can hire you, they're going to remember stuff like that and want to hire you for a job.
Thank you, Sarah. That is so true. And I'm going to pass the microphone to Crystal.
So I would also encourage current MLS students to find a way to get a behind-the-scenes look at the day-to-day operations of whichever kind of library you are interested in working in. And that can look like volunteering or doing an internship or even serving as a board member for your local library. I think that by understanding the day-to-day operations of a library, you increase your chances of actually landing a job in a library. I know that over the years when my library has hired, it's been challenging at times because MLS students will apply, but they don't demonstrate a real-world understanding of the work or the job. So this experience will certainly help you stand out from other applicants. I would also encourage MLS students to learn as much as they can about the politics of whichever kind of organization they are hoping to go into. For example, for those of you who want to work in public libraries, I would encourage you to learn about local government operations and how the library fits within the larger picture of the city or county government, because politics will be part of your work at some point.
Thank you, Crystal. And Brianna, what advice would you give?
Well, I have to say, first of all, the advice that we're getting, I'm taking to heart. I think it's really great. So for me to add something, I guess what I would say to current MLIS students is get involved in your state associations. I joined WLA in 2010, I think, when I was a page, and by far it's been the best way to meet other library professionals across the state. And especially if you have an interest in management or administration and you don't have any formal management experience and you're still trying to get that experience, getting involved on a committee, chairing a conference, helping to plan conferences is a really good way to get some of that project management experience that you can build on and point to when you're looking at job applications and that kind of a thing. I think that those kinds of experience can help lead to job offers. It did me, even though I ultimately had to turn it down. But having that kind of project management experience was what made me really attractive to the organization that offered me the position. And also, a lot of state associations are going to have mentorship programs, either formal or informal, and I definitely advise kind of looking into those and finding a mentor in the profession that you can talk to. And even if it's on an informal basis, librarians with even just a few more years of experience than you can be really great resources.
Thank you, Brianna. And Brianna didn't say so, but she was one of the key organizers for, was it one whale conference or two whale conferences? Were you co-chair?
I co-chaired the 2012 whale conference. It was either 12 or 13. They kind of run together now. But I've been on the conference committee for whale since 2011. But I co-chaired a conference when I was working as a page, and that apparently was kind of a big deal for pages to be involved on that kind of a level. So even if you're just a student or just a page, as I used to say, you're not just a student, you're not just a page, and you can get involved at that level in your organizations.
Yes, thank you. And Kayla, what advice would you give to current students?
I think the best thing that I can think of would be to just really know what program you're getting into on the school side of things, and also know what works for you as a student. I never thought of myself as an online student. The classes that I took that were even hybrid online, I always preferred being in class, but it never worked with my work schedule. I was working 2 jobs at the time, so I really needed the flexibility that online school gave me. You know, I also looked at the overall program. Did I need to do an overarching project or anything like that? You know, just really get to know the programs are often posted online, so you can really get a feel of what's going to best suit your learning style. And if it's not going to work for you, go for somewhere that will, because this is just a major deciding factor in your life choice right now. And this is one of the biggest decisions, is deciding what program you're going to take.
Thank you, Kayla. This next question is similar, but what advice would we give to current librarian job seekers? And I'm going to pass the mic off to Sarah.
So I know this isn't possible for everyone, but it really does help to be flexible about what you can apply for. If you can take a job a little bit out of your geographic area, you're more likely to get a job quickly, I found. I also think if you're willing to take a job that's a little bit outside of your comfort zone, like if you're a youth person and an awesome adult services job pops up, you shouldn't totally discount it. So flexibility is really important. If I had been limited to staying in Seattle, I'm pretty sure my job search would have been very different than it was. And I understand that some people can't be flexible in a lot of ways, but if you can, then you should. I also think that interviewing is an incredibly important skill, and if you're not good at it, it's really hard to get a job. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because I think there are a lot of people who would be amazing librarians who are not necessarily great interviewers. But if you know you're not good at interviewing, I think it's really important to practice a lot, talk to people who've been on hiring committees to see what kinds of people they're looking for in interviews and like what qualities they're looking for. Read books about interviewing. And I think the best advice I ever got about interviewing was when you're at an interview to treat every question as an opportunity to tell a story about yourself, so that everything you say is supported by an actual thing you have done instead of just your qualities.
Thank you, Sarah. Such good advice. Adam, what advice would you give?
My advice, I guess, would be twofold. First of all, kind of on a practical note, make sure you're seeking full-time employment. If you can find jobs out there that are full-time, be applying for those first. Don't. I've gone through a lot of part-time jobs in the past 7 years as working towards a librarianship, and there are very good part-time jobs out there that I've very much enjoyed. But don't assume, especially with the economic conditions that we're in and how just competitive the job market is, don't assume that a part-time job is eventually going to lead to a full-time job, and don't get stuck basically in multiple part-time jobs. The second thing I would say was actually kind of related to MLS students, but I think it relates to job seekers as well. In school, I took a class that was all about basically big picture stuff, thinking about basically developing your philosophy of librarianship, your own personal philosophies about why libraries exist, what the role of the librarian and the library is in society. You'll have time to learn a lot of the details on the job, but I think really thinking about what you believe about libraries and why they exist, what you want to be doing in libraries and how you would go about doing those things, is really going to help you have not only have a sense of direction in your own career going forward, but it's also going to really help you in your interviewing. I know it's helped me in interviewing because, you know, people are looking for a specific job candidate and they're looking for certain types of philosophies. Different libraries are going to be looking for that. So you really want to develop your own personal identity, I guess.
Thank you, Adam. And Crystal, what advice would you give?
I would encourage current librarian job seekers to focus on their experience and especially on their transferable skills from other industries. The MLS is usually a minimum qualification for professional level positions, so it's everything beyond the degree then that sets candidates apart from each other. Even if you are currently unemployed, you can still be of service to the profession by participating in those professional organizations, for example, by volunteering at conferences or serving on boards. And also, if you do happen to be unemployed, most professional organizations do offer significantly reduced membership fees.
Thank you, Crystal. And Sarah, what advice would you give?
I think this is all excellent advice that everyone's given. So what I would add is just remember that you're more than your job. If you're in an ongoing job search that's taking longer than you may have hoped, it's easy to get discouraged and even depressed. So take care of yourself, your physical, mental, and emotional health. Have a support system in place. Devote time to your hobbies and interests and relationships outside of librarianship. Don't take it personally if you don't get the offer for a particular job that you may have had your heart set on, and try not to get your heart too set on a specific position because it is so competitive and there are so many qualified librarians out there that bring so much to the table. And so, you know, it's really easy to get discouraged, but just do your best to be resilient and not take it personally and not get discouraged. And just try to maintain a positive attitude and keep at it. Just don't give up. And eventually, I hope that we will all land those dream jobs that we're looking for.
Thank you, Sarah. And the only things I'd add here is that people haven't mentioned as much is really pimp out your LinkedIn profile if you haven't done that already. That's going to be a great tool. It's so much better than a business card, although I also think having a business card that's a personal email and not for your current employer is helpful. You can use that later, even after you are employed, as part of your library advocacy that you have to do off the clock. And the other thing I would say is, from my own experience, I was becoming a specialist, and upon graduation, I had my sights on certain jobs that were really specialized, but there weren't very many of those types of jobs, and so I had to change and become more of a generalist, and that's a new way of thinking about librarianship for me. So this is our last question, and here we are. We have our master's degrees. It's just the beginning. It's one of the wonderful things about librarianship is that we do have a community of sharing, and so I'm looking forward to learning how all of our careers continue to unfold and what we will have to share with the library community as we endeavor to reach our potential. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and now is the time to ask any questions. I will let go of the mic. Feel free to pick up the mic, raise your hand, or chat.
We did have a question from Chelsea earlier. Just wanted to read that out here 1 second. Are you referring to the economic downturn of 2008? That was when you were talking about the downturn earlier.
Yes, although I think the economic downturn was longer than that, and depending on which library system people are working in, we saw hiring freezes stretch for a number of years, or just people hanging on to their positions for a lot longer. A lot of people I knew who were planning to retire in 2010 or 2012, 2013 decided to hang on for several more years even because they needed to boost up their retirement funds. So it's the long tail of the economic downturn. Any other questions?
I see one person typing right now. Looks like that would be it at the moment.
Well, I will say it has been a pleasure to be here, and I'm going to paste in some links from the sites I mentioned at the very beginning with the research. And then I'm also going to paste in my email address and Twitter. If you have any questions and you'd like to follow up with, feel free to contact me, and I can get your question to the other panelists as well if you have specific questions.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. It looks like the individual typing earlier has stopped, so I guess they decided they didn't have a question. Everyone in the panel, thank you very much. It was very informative, and I enjoyed it greatly. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne, and everyone. This will be archived, and the recording link will be posted. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
On the recording. I do want to say, because of our internet woes at the moment, it's going to be slightly delayed. It should hopefully be up sometime today. I just can't